whether it's on the taxation side, whether it's fixing our energy equation, whether it's SOE reforms and the privatization agenda, and indeed the public finances. कि जो गवर्नमेंट का एक्सपेंडिचर है और फेडरल गवर्नमेंट का जो एक्सपेंडिचर है उसकी राइट साइजिंग होनी चाहिए, उसमें पेंशन रिफॉर्म्स आनी चाहिए, so that whatever taxation is coming through is being appropriately spent. Now, this जो messaging है आपकी, that's why I say it's loud and clear for two reasons. One, our past record is not stellar. हम भटक जाते हैं. We go off track. The moment we get onto track, there are many pressures which come through and we go off track. Number one. Number two, there is no single silver bullet. ये जितनी मैंने reforms की बात की है, और मैं बार बार ये बात कहता हूं कि the what and why have been known to the country not for years but for decades. It's only the how part of it, and that will require a very holistic approach. कोई ये silver bullet नहीं है. उसमें starting with people and therefore governance, simplifying processes and technology. Abhi Chairman Vion talked about digitalization and how this is going to help, and of course, this is going to help in terms of digital Pakistan, in terms of where we're going to go. But in all our government institutions, this is so important in terms of end-to-end digitalization and the role of technology in bringing transparency, in stemming leakages and corruption, by reducing the human intervention, and ultimately improved client service. Now, undoubtedly, there will be bumps on the road. अगर इतना ही आसान होता तो ये कुछ सालों और डेकेड में हो गया होता. तो इसलिए ये हिकअप्स आएंगे और इसमें we have to remain steadfast. और जो आपकी तरफ से सब कुछ मैसेजेस वापस आ रहे हैं, इंटरनेशनल कम्युनिटी से, हमारे पार्टनर से वापस आ रहे हैं, stay the course. We absolutely intend to stay the course. Now, we need to do all of this for the short to medium term ताकि इस economy को हम turn around कर सकें. And as I said, the macroeconomic stability is step one in that direction before we start talking about sustainable growth. Now, how do we get there? And that's where we come to the topic at hand, what matters now? What matters now? And that's where there's a tactical part of it, and there is a strategic part to it. And the speakers before me have already touched on some of the strategic elements around that. As far as the tactical aspect is concerned, once we on this roadmap of structural reforms, we have to have a very clear road to market. And that road to market is कि हम number one, fundamentally DNA economy की change करें towards export orientation. Import substitution, जो हमने industry को मराद दी, उनको protection दी for the longest time without sunset clauses, that cannot continue going forward, right? Because क्योंकि इसमें दो चीजें हैं. On one side, the government has to come in to help vis-a-vis taxation, vis-a-vis competitive interest rates, and of course the overall ease of doing business. But at the same time, the private sector, which has to lead the country, I've been saying that over the last 6 months, and I've been saying that in my private sector role, the private sector has to lead the country. But the private sector also has to improve its productivity. It takes two. It takes two. So when we are talking about changing the DNA of the economy, we need to do what we need to do in terms of the government, जैसे अभी असफर ने कहा, policy framework, policy continuity. And then we should get the hell out of this whole thing so that the private sector can take this forward. Lekin the private sector has to also do what they need to do in terms of increasing their productivity. The second thing is FDI. And of course, FDI के दो components हैं. It was just mentioned, Excellency yourself as well, and Asfa mentioned that as well. The investment appetite, these have been very publicly stated. And so I don't want to get into those numbers. But the ball is back in our court in terms of coming up with investable, bankable projects where folks can come in, do equity investments and get board seats. That's sustainable for our foreign investors, that's sustainable for our local investors, and that's the only sustainable way forward for this country. That's one aspect of it. And the second of it is when we get into FDI, we have to focus on that FDI going forward, which produces exportable surplus. Otherwise, the currency mismatch is something which we have been facing with in the yesteryears. We are still facing that